Everybody, welcome. Gosh, it feels like I haven't been on here in forever, and really, compared to what I was doing, I haven't. But it's going to become more regular. The holidays are over, but more than anything, I'm excited because I have an author on here that both my wife and I said that twice, are very into and love her prose. But I welcome you. How are you tonight, ER Phoenix?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me here.
I'm good. It's freezing in Ohio.
Uh,
How is your weather? And by the way,
Here,
let everybody know where you're at, where you're coming from tonight.
I'm coming from, talking from Vega Baja, Puerto Rico. This is in the northern part of the island, and right now it's 79 degrees.
Oh, how
It
dare
was a
you?
sunny and nice
That's
day.
that's a little bit. I'm a little jealous. I have to, and I like the cold. So my wife doesn't though. So she's probably just wishing for 79. Um, that's incredible though. One of my favorite things, and I talk about this a lot, but I know I'm going to repeat myself because it really truly is something I love. Is finding and talking and making friends with people, authors, illustrators, editors that do that their day's different than mine. Culture is so incredible.
Yeah.
So I love all aspects of that. And I can't just wait to dive in and hear some more of those wonderful aspects that make us all very much alike, but so very different at the same time.
Yeah, I love that also. Actually, I found so many authors, once I started writing, so many people from all around the world, and it makes, for me, it's wonderful, like, to meet other cultures and talk to them. So
And tell me, it sounds like you have similar experience. The community, and just a quick recap. I have not always been a reader. I'm 34. I turned 34 last no or 2024 in November, and
hmm
I started reading when I was 29. So not very long. But what I've noticed since being in the community is it's one of the most incredible communities. Have you had a
it is.
similar experience?
It is. It is. It's a wonderful community. Like, the everyone cares about everyone. Everyone shares what the progress of each of us. Like, if I ask a question, they will help. I've made friends in here. It's wonderful, really.
It is, and I think that your point about having questions, it's I think probably the only community that I've been a part of that isn't competition. It is for the betterment of all involved.
Yeah.
Very cool. So it's really good that you're here. I'm so thankful you took some time out of your schedule to hang out with us. And I'd love to start with something I'm truly fascinated in because it's not my story. Um, when your love for literature kind of started, were you young?
Uh can I say it? It's been like a roller coaster, because, like, I read when I was very young. I remember, um being in the library most of my time in school, and reading these books that I don't remember how they're called. They're in Spanish, but you could choose, like, the next step, and based on your choice you could move a page forward or backward, and then, so anyone that reads the book will have a different ending depending on your choices. But then I stopped reading for a while, like, for a long while. And maybe when I was like 22 years old, I started reading again. um, and it was Harry Potter. Then I stopped reading, and I started again, like, in my when I was 30, 32. And that's when I found my favorite genre, that is dystopia. uh, because the first book I got my hands uh, to was, Declaration by Gemma Malley. It's a wonderful dystopia. You don't hear much about it, but I do love it. And then I read Susan Collins, Cara O'Brien, and yeah, I fell in love with the genre. So I think I started reading more when I was 32.
Hey, I what I love about that is well many things because I don't know exactly. I'm not 100% sure the terminology in English either. I believe it's like progression. I'm probably saying it wrong, but I understand that depending on which choice you choose depends on the kind of the trajectory of the rest of the book.
Yeah.
I've heard of that. I haven't read those, and I think that would be incredible.
Those
And
very good books.
I love that you also. So before I get to this next question, and I'll probably forget, so I'll just say it's about Harry Potter. But let everybody know, including myself, your foundation as far as language and understanding language and writing in which language. Can you get where I'm kind of saying?
Hmm. Um, I my first language is Spanish, so I I remember the first time I wrote it was in Spanish,
Okay.
and I was going through a rough point in my life. I was very young, maybe 11 or 12, and I started writing random thoughts, some prose, uh, and then I stopped. Uh, and it was in 2012 that I started writing again. My the language that I started writing in was Spanish, but then later when I was in high school, I went into a creative writing class in English, and I really clicked there. Like the teacher told me, you really write well in English, better than in Spanish. So I started writing, and when I went to college, I took a couple of electives in English, and they were all in literature and writing. And the professor told me also, two professors told me also that I wrote quite well in English. So I prefer to write in English.
Wow. So, couple things. A second language in which you were somewhat familiar with, kind of growing up, and it's just expanded, right?
Yeah.
It's incredible to hear, and I'm sure it was incredible to hear from the professors too, that this language. It's hard to even speak from that point of view because that's a very unique point of view where you learn or you have a second language that ends up being the more preferred way to write. That is extremely unique. Um, why do you think the English is better for you personally to write in? Is it the opposite to what most people say? Where hey, I learned English, it was really hard. There's so many words. Does that benefit you as a writer?
Um, I don't know. I don't know why I really don't understand why I write better in English, or why I chose it. I think for me it wasn't difficult. Some things, like after I started writing, I found out many things that I needed to change. But it's because they teach us like perfect grammar in school, like perfect English. So when you're writing a book, you need to be more informal. So I had to like you know make it less formal, like learn to talk in English like you talk in English in the US. So it's quite different than what they teach you in school. um, but for me, English was never that hard. I don't understand why. I don't know if I had very good teachers, or if it was maybe that I watch a lot of TV in English since I was little, so maybe my brain like made the connection, and it's not that difficult for me. um so
I've
yeah, I
heard.
prefer it.
No, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. There's a lag.
No,
I always tell people if I accidentally interrupt you, I'm so sorry.
no, don't
Uh,
worry.
I was just wanting to speak on the point of I had a Spanish teacher, and we were talking a little bit before we came on about how I really love the Spanish language. It's beautiful. I just love everything about it. I like how there's an order to it, where there's, you know, if you're talking to him or they or we or
Mhm.
we, it's all systematic to me. That's the way my brain thinks. And if I was a Spanish speaking person, I'm going to have to guess that English would be the hardest thing in the world for me to learn. But I do remember my Spanish teacher saying, "Hey, the best way to learn a language is to throw yourself into it. Reading, uh, TV, visiting the place that you want to speak, what they speak there for their
Mhm.
language." So I think you're probably right. I mean, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I do love writing in Spanish. Like it just flows slower for me. I don't know why. And I prefer to speak Spanish, but I write in English. So It's a weird thing.
I love
Um,
that.
but yeah, I remember like my parents would take me to the U.S. I actually lived in Missouri for a year and a half or two
Missouri?
years.
Is that what
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So yeah, I guess it's true. Like if and I've heard of people that go to countries and like learn the language in a year, just immersing themselves. So I guess
I mean, you
that's
have to
possible.
at that point, right? How are you going to order a cheeseburger or a taco, or how are you going to order water? I mean, other than having those like few vocabulary words that we'll all recognize or like memorize before we go to a place that we're unfamiliar with the language, but to
Hmm.
actually start to try to communicate and just throw yourself in, I can imagine it's a necessity at that point.
Yeah.
So, EL, my man, I'm glad you're here. Yeah, unfortunately, I had to cancel my thing this morning due to a couple unseen things, but we'll reschedule that. I am here now, so I understand the confusion, but we're here and I'm loving it. And yes, Puerto Rico. Tell me if I say it right. You are tú eres una puertorriqueña?
Yeah.
Sí, I got it right, guys. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, here you go, showing off. Una hamburguesa con queso y una cerveza. Sí, cervezas.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Look at that's so cool, man. I love that so much. So I appreciate you sharing that. Do you remember? I know you spoke about a couple authors that influenced you as far as dystopian literature goes. Were there any foundational authors as far as, hey, I'm just starting to read, and you have if you had those particular authors that you love to read, or was it kind of pick up as we go, or did you have a favorite?
I started reading these authors because someone that worked with my husband actually gave those books to my husband,
Okay.
and he took them here to my house, and I put them in a bookshelf, and I forgot about them, and it was I I I broke a foot. This is how the story goes. So I broke a foot, so I had nothing to do. I couldn't do anything, and I'm a person that I'm very hyper. Like I want to do stuff.
Hmm.
So I took the books and I started reading. Um, and like I didn't pick these authors. I didn't even know them. I did know J.K. Rowling when I read Harry Potter because everyone knew,
Mm.
but I didn't know who Gemma Malley was. I didn't know who Suzanne Collins was. This was before the movies, so um, it was all new to me.
Okay.
And but I did like I like if you were gonna if I were gonna tell you about an author that like really inspired me, I really love Cara O'Brien. She did the Birthmark trilogy. It's a dystopian that not many people know about, but I do love. I did love it, and I
Birthmark.
also ah
You said
birthmark.
birthmark. Okay, I just want to
Yeah,
make sure I got it right. Continue. Sorry.
yeah. Don't worry. And I do love this author. His name is Michael Manning. I don't know if you know him, but he writes fantasy, and he really did inspire me, like to create stories. And
Is that what it
another,
is for you? Just that
yeah,
creation, that creativity that you get to push out onto paper?
yeah, yeah. I have a lot of stuff in my mind, and I just need to write it down, or else I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I get it. I love that. That's so cool. So, would you repeat the last? It was Michael Manning, you said?
Manning,
Oh, Manning.
Manning. Yeah,
So, it's like I feel like I've heard that name, and it's funny. A lot of the books that I read and cover is fantasy, but I don't know that I've heard of him. But that's the most exciting thing. It's like new thing, right? It's so
yeah,
exciting. I'm
yeah.
glad that you spoke of those influential, especially the Birthmark trilogy. I know my wife, who, by the way, I'm gonna definitely shout her out. I'm gonna just ruin her disguise right there. She's writing down everything you say, and she has a question. I guarantee it. She is absolutely my. Let me just tell you something real quick before we talk about the meat and potatoes, if you will. To get my wife to read an author once, because she loves to read, but she has very few authors that she loves. I'm telling you, she will not stop talking about your writing. I love it. She's been so excited about this interview, and I'm so glad because she has wonderful question already. I know she's got more in store. So here's the first question from her. It's did you always have the story of the Promissa Trilogy in your head?
Not always. It came in a dream in 2012, and I wrote it down. Uh, I I didn't find. I was searching my old computers earlier this week, and I didn't find that piece of information, like the scene that I dreamt. But I do remember the dream as if I had it yesterday. So I had this dream, and it's actually chapter 10 on the book. I looked for it before the interview so I could say it. So
No.
chapter 10 of the book was my dream. So I created everything from it. So I actually started writing like the first chapter of the book in 2012, and I stopped. I stopped because I had to take a job as a teacher. I had the three children, and I couldn't do it. So I found it a year ago, the old computer with the stuff that I wrote, because I remembered that I had it written down. So yeah, that's
Wow.
how it goes. It was a dream, and I still dream stories. Like, I have a kind of cyberpunk futuristic story in my mind that I want to write, and that was on a dream. Also, so yeah.
Well, look, so that's exciting to hear that because I feel like that's I've not got a lot of experience with cyberpunk, but nothing in far as genres that I haven't read in looks more appealing. Like I love the look, I love the feel, I love the aesthetic. I can't wait to be more versed in it. And how incredible. I don't know if I've ever, not one time, maybe once or twice that I can remember, like in 34 years I've been alive, dreamt in a story. Like very few. So I think that that's also incredibly unique. Um, that sounds kind of fun. Like you're watching a movie, or you kind of just wake up with like a lot of detail. I'm sorry, this is probably a weird question, but is it kind of vague to kind of allow your writing to go into it, or are these dreams very specific? A lot of info.
Um, my dreams have always been very specific. Like,
Oh,
my mother used to say that she couldn't, like, I would wake up every morning and tell her my dreams, and she's like, how do you remember with such
yes.
detail? And I don't know why. I guess that's when my mind gets creative, but I'm sleeping, so I just dream it. But I do see it as a movie. Like, and when I'm writing, I see it as a movie. And I wanted to add to the question of the Promissa Trilogy. I didn't know
Yeah.
if it was gonna be a trilogy or not. Like, I thought it was gonna be one book. Then, as this as I developed the story, I said, well, maybe there are two. And then, like 6 months into it, I'm like, yeah, I have to do three. There's no way I can put it all in one book. So
That's cool too. I have to say, like for me, and I haven't had this idea that sparks all this inspiration, like it seems that so many of you have, and that's incredible. And what I mean by saying that is to, if I was to start a story right now, I don't know that I could say this is going to be 3 books just because I've never written more than maybe 5,000, 10,000 words in my life. And to feel, I guess I would feel like I have to fill up 3 books rather than I hope 3 books will contain and what I have in store for this story. So it sounds like what you started writing and found out through your prose and how you talk about things and explain that 3 books was going to be the deal. Because like you said, one, maybe two, maybe three. Was that cool to find out about your natural writing process? Is that you're needing more and more books, which is I think is a huge plus. People love to get sucked in and get to look forward to book 2 and book 3. There is something so invaluable about that.
yeah, it was quite surprising and scary at the same time. But yeah, it just I saw it, like I just can't. And I'm a pantser. I don't know if you know the term pantser, but
Yes,
like I
absolutely.
do plot a little bit. Like I do know the ending that I
Wow.
want of each book. I do know what um like the climax of each book is gonna be, like the
Yeah.
moment where everything goes crazy. But I don't know anything else. So I'm just moving towards a point, and it can be sometimes like hard. Like sometimes I that's when I get like block, the block that that people talk about,
Hmm.
and I have to like play video games or read another book and then come back, because I'm like, oh, what's gonna happen next? And I just let the characters do their stuff. And sometimes with this third book, it's been crazy. Like they're doing stuff that I don't want them to do, and it sounds a little bit because it's me, like I'm creating this story, but I sometimes feel like they have them a mind of their own, and I don't want things to happen, and they're like pushing me to write it down, and I get so mad. But then I do it. They always win. Um,
I
so
have heard
yeah.
that. Like one of the coolest experience that I hope to have one day is what you just said. Like so many people, even in this chat, that I'm like, what's going on? The Renegade Bard was my friend. How you doing, man? Uh, just hearing that these characters take on their own life, and it's not usually, from what I understand. Again, I haven't. This is what I hear just from kind of what you just said. These characters do what feels natural to them, and you're along for the ride rather than you being the all, encompassing. That's incredible.
Yeah,
Did you expect that? Like, did you expect to have the characters kind of let you know what the story is going to be, or was that something that was just you found out?
it just happened, and I really didn't like look into it until book two, because like sometimes I think about why let's take for example Sarah
Hmm.
from the books. um I don't remember how I created her. Like I don't know when she started, when she came into my mind, and I just wrote her down, and uh it just flows. So yeah, I
No.
didn't expect it, but I do love it. I do love the characters, and in the second book it was where I like found out what they were really doing, because there was a scene in the second book that I finished it, and this is how I felt it. I felt like someone was knocking at the door in my brain,
Hmm.
and I opened this door, and there's this character, and he says, I should be in this scene, so you need to let me in. So I go back to the beginning of the scene, and he comes into the scene. So I changed the whole, like I added him, and everything changed, and it was a turning point for the book. Like it really changed the dynamic of the book once that person started, um, you know, getting
Intruding.
inside the scenes and pushing me.
Wow. So that is so fascinating to me. You had just natural feeling, and this your experience. I love that kind of information because every single writer that I've met, and I'm going to assume is across the board, has a different. It's hard to find things that we all do as individuals, or and it's actually authentic, right? What I mean is, chances are somebody lives a pretty close life that I do. But when it comes to the writing process, from what I've heard from many authors, it's always unique. And the experience is always unique to that writer. So there's just endless amounts of information that I love to gather. And I just want to say thank you for talking about that in depth kind of event that happened, because that is cool. And I think that those are the kind of situations in which one can gain a lot of inspiration, right? Like, wow, I didn't expect this. And now I'm very inspired to maybe listen. I don't know. You kind of make those decisions in the moment, I'm assuming. But it
Yep.
sounds very cool. Um, there it is. I just had a brain fart. I'm so sorry, guys. All right. So we've heard about the books. I'm so sorry that we're just now getting to this, but tell us about the Promissa Trilogy. Give a little bit of an overview, no spoilers, but what can people expect diving into your work?
Uh, it, my books are based on many things that I lived through and that I've learned. Like from my biology, I have a my biology degree. Um, so I like science. So my books have to do with a future where the natural resources are almost like the climate change occurred and some countries lost their natural resources. And what happens is that they look for other countries that have them. So my book is based on that. It's a country that comes into another. Wars happen, everything happens, and they take control over a city that is Promissa, a whole area, and they oppress the citizens, doing a lot of stuff that I'm not going to talk about. So you
Yes.
should read the book. And then there's the people that are opposing this government. So
I'm glad that you spoke on the overview of that plot so well. You did. That was a perfect pitch because you didn't spoil anything, and that gave a very good feel to how what to expect. Would you consider it a dystopian thriller?
um, I was asking my husband this today. Just today, I
Hmm.
was asking him this, and he's like, "I think it is a thriller and a romance and a dystopian, like everything in one, because
Yeah.
it has the elements of a thriller and also elements of romance. Uh, I don't consider it young adult.
No.
If I were going to, I would say coming out of age adult or adult, and I go more for adult
Yeah.
because it's a yeah,
Yeah.
the
There's a
topics.
couple. I think you're right. I think you nailed that. I don't. It's definitely. There's points that are needed to be in there. Like this is my opinion on a lot of let's say what's the word that I'm looking for, trigger warning stuff.
Mhm.
I think that there's, and this is you all the way to the letter, everything that you put in your writing is necessary. I've read authors in which they'll throw stuff in just for like a shock value, and I think that you nailed that right on the head. It's not crazy, and but also there's a couple points that needed to be made, and the characters were so much more in depth, and you understood them and empathized with them even more so due to that. And also, my wife, one of my wife's favorite things is that it's not like super spicy. So I was going to see if you would talk. A lot of people, if they hear romance, maybe they're worried about spice. What would you have to say about the level of spice in your work?
Um, I think it's a normal level of spice for adults. Like it's not smart.
Mm.
It's not that kind of book. And but it does like it is enough to feel like a romance and to feel like it's an adult type of book.
Yes,
So
perfect. So I love that. Thank you. So to find out that you're a pantser, to find out that you've had these experiences of guided you along the way in writing and producing and publishing your work has been very, very cool so far. And it's funny, I always usually ask that question right after this about the pantsing. So I'm going to dive a little bit farther back into that if I could. And me, I'm definitely not a pantser. Like, that's the farthest thing from what I am. How did you go about really finding whether you were an outliner or a pantser? When, I guess, does that make sense?
yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
Like I've tried to outline, like I tried it at first, but I didn't know what to write in the outline. Like I knew like what I wanted to happen. I knew what I dreamt. I knew the characters that I wanted to write. And I think that's all I actually wrote down in my Excel at the first time. It was like the characters and their characteristics and how they were. So I just started writing, and I wrote for. I think I finished the first draft like in 2 months,
Wow.
and I
Wow.
didn't know anything about Panzer or Plotter or whatever.
You
I
just
found
did what.
out. Yeah, I found out later when I went into the author community, and I'm like, I'm definitely a pantser.
The
Um,
first message you got, you're like, "What is she talking about pants for? Like, what is this pants question?" Like, that's funny. Yeah, no,
yeah.
I can imagine. Like, you just kind of did what felt natural to you.
Yeah, and for the last book I have an outline because I need to cover like I have it, but it's not like in order. I just want to cover all the things that I need to cover because it's the last book. So I do have an outline, but it's just like data, like sentences of stuff that I need to talk about. Maybe it's
More
just a
like
name.
I've created 2 books and now I'm working on this third, and I have to keep all this stuff straight. So I have a reminder sheet basically.
Yeah, that's what it is about. Yeah, and sometimes I even forget stuff and I need to go back, and that's why it takes longer this book because sometimes I say like, oh, I forgot this character, he's supposed to be in this scene, and I go 3 chapters back and I'm like, okay, now.
I can only imagine. Like, that's one of the things I've thought about a lot is like you get to book 2 even or book 3 or like the freaks of nature in our world, like Robert Jordan, who did what I believe 14 books. All of these things, you know, that somebody will notice if from book 1 to book 14, you did something that didn't make exact sense.
Yeah,
Somebody's going to pick up on that. So that's got to be somewhat of a challenge. At least it would be for me to keep book 3 with continuity, I guess it would be. So
yeah,
bravo.
yeah, and I really have to like thank my editor because she's amazing.
Who is it? I'll shout her out, put her stuff on the description and link her.
It's Miranda Miller. She's from
Miranda.
Ohio also.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Miranda
Miranda
Miller.
Miller.
Yeah, she's amazing, and she's the one that she will find these moments in the book. Like she's like, "Hey, you forgot something here, I think," or "Hey, your time is a little bit off here," and I'm like, "Thank you,"
Bless
because you're
those
right.
people, man.
Yeah, you need someone else to see your work because if not, you're gonna miss stuff.
Ooh, that's a great point. I love that. So make sure the other people read and hopefully like somebody like an editor so that you're not the only eyes on your work. I think that should be put in stone. That sounds like a stone right moment. That sounds very, very. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but that has to be a rule in the book somewhere. Don't
Yeah.
let your eyes be the only eyes that touch your work.
No.
What's going on, avid book junkies? Good to see you, man. Cinna, Pantsers Unite. She says she's a writer, booktuber, audiobook lover, all of it. Um, Molly, it's good to see you. I'm trying to shout out those I haven't shouted out. What's up, Joe Rijos? I hope I said that right. Good to see you, Joe. Um, let's see here. Grimfell, my dude. I had you up there. Thank you so much, man, for joining the membership. I'm actually getting ready to fix all that and actually have it more specific and better organized. So I really appreciate it. By the way, man, love the music you're doing. Keep pumping it out. You're amazing. Um, let's see here. Elizabeth, thank you for being here. All right. So what would you say was the hardest aspect, if you can choose one, that you found in your personal journey with literature and writing it? You would say, or give this piece of advice to somebody new trying to get their self-published book out. What's something that you particularly and personally dealt with that you felt somewhat challenging and would like to pass that on?
Um. Well, the most challenging thing for me is yourself, like self-doubt and imposter syndrome, like and thinking like what are people going to think of my book? Just write your story and don't think about it. Someone's going to read it and you hope they like it, but you can't like stop doing it, and so yeah, that's the worst. Self-publishing, it was it wasn't that hard because as I told you, like the author community was very helpful. um I think I found everything I needed in there. Like I found how to look for an editor. I found my cover artist. in there also. Um, it is somewhat expensive,
Mm.
like some of the stuff, and but it's worth it. Like,
So go ahead.
yeah.
No, I'm so sorry. Keep going.
No, like you need to have an editor, you need to do the stuff, because if not, your book will not be what you want it to be. So
Oh, I love that point, and that's something I've gathered too to be like something I would use as a personal rule as well. Like, let's just be frank. At least for myself, I may have one or two talents, but not to be an editor, a writer, a cover artist, a formatter, all this stuff. Like that would be too much. And I really respect anybody who has a realistic view of that. And you very much, I think, just said a very realistic point. It's like have an editor, have a professional go over your work. If you have a lot of confidence and love and passion in your work, I feel like it deserves that, right?
yeah.
Who did your covers? You want to shout them out as well?
Yeah, his name is Christian Bentulan. He's from the Philippines. He's an amazing artist, really.
That's very cool. I'll get his information too, and I'll put that in the description, guys. Um, what would you say was a part that? Well, let me reword this. Well, we'll start here. At what point did you realize that you were going to continue? Like, as far as okay, you're writing book one. Hey, I'm going to have a finished book. And when did you decide to end book one and start book two and end book two? And you know what I'm saying? Like, how did you know those ending and starting points?
Hmm, that's a very good question. Um, I was writing book one, and I wanted an ending for book one, and it was already maybe 60, 70,000 words, and I was far away from that point. So that's when I decided when I how I was gonna end book one, and what the topic of book two would be, and how book two was going to end. And for real, for the people that have read book one and two, I didn't know that that was going to happen until I wrote it down. The ending of book two, I had it, I thought about it, but I didn't know it was gonna be like that. So
So
yeah.
it was another one of those just natural events that came along on this
Yeah.
journey and put
So I
itself
was,
where it needed to be.
yeah, I was as shocked as the reader. I just want like the readers to understand that authors are as shocked as them. Today I was reading something on Facebook, and it was about that. Like it was like when you read your draft and you're thinking, "Whoa, what? How is this gonna end?" And then you realize it's your book, and you're the one that's writing it, and you don't know how it's gonna end.
I mean, I feel like that's a pretty good test to see, like, if you get compelled and drawn into your own book and forget that you wrote it, like, that's a damn good book. You know what I mean? That's the test right there. My man Grimfell. No, I didn't mean run out of music. I don't think that Grimfell could ever run out of music, dude. He does have a wonderful question. Abby and Davin are well written characters. What was your muse slash inspiration when developing them for that?
Well, as I said, I dreamt Davon was the character that was really set on my mind after that dream, and I developed Abby towards, like, I saw her in the dream, but I was not sure of how she was gonna be. Um, uh, I think every character has something of myself in them, so that's how I'm gonna put it. I didn't find out until in book two there was a scene that I just like had to cover my face and cry, because
Mm-hmm.
I think that scene was the one when I found out that Abby had a lot of my life like in her, like, and it was like eye opening, like, and then I started like looking at each character, and I think every one of them has something that I've been through, or has like this characteristic that I think would help people. Like I create these characters so that people feel that they can be real, people that you can actually meet. So my inspiration, I think, it's that creating characters that people can actually uh, meet in real life, like feel that they can be part of, you know, their a moment in their life or something. So yeah, and I wanted Davon and Abby to be very different from each other, and they have other things that are very alike, but they do have like this difficult past that unite them. So that's what I love about them.
I love that you covered a couple things. Your characters are very, as Grimfell knows. I didn't know you had read her work. I love that you have, man. Uh, the characters you create are so believable, and what I mean by that is you can tell there's an authenticity there. You speak that there's certain characteristics or certain events that may have happened that you can relate with, or maybe you've gone through. That's what makes, in my opinion, characters outstanding. Like, if you can speak on something that has happened to you or a friend or someone you love, there's going to be so many other people who can relate with that, which I find to be one of the most valuable things in a novel, let alone just characters. So a lot of respect for talking about that, and the fact that we're compelled to do such, because again, your characters are wonderful and they're very authentic. They're easy to empathize with, and yeah, absolutely. So my wife, she's changed MOs again, her identities again. That's her government name. I'm so glad you didn't stop after Rebel Unbound. I cannot wait for book 3.
Yeah, I
She
cannot
said,
wait for it. I really am working very hard on having it done soon. Really, I'm
also,
working on it every day.
my wife can't wait to read it, but she has been, neither of us were readers until pretty recently within the last 5 years, and she understands what goes into writing a book. She also is very like, take your time, like do your thing, never rush at perfection. Like, so she's not one of those. It's like, hey, are you done yet? She just, when it comes out, she's going to be your number one reader. I promise. So
Thank
that's
you,
that's all.
Auntie.
I wanted to make sure to specify, because she's absolutely on your team. Tim, man, what's going on, brother? I've seen you all up and down the chat, and I feel like I may have missed over your name, but we don't miss a beard like that, my friend. Um, the wifey also says it's so elaborate. Yeah, I'm so connected to multiple characters. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm in love with this trilogy. The adventure, suspense, healing, growth, and love. Yes, all of those
Yeah,
aspects.
and yeah, I think for me, um, I the healing stuff. That's the stuff that gets me. Like how these characters help each other get through all these things that they're going through.
That's so important. I mean, whether it's with family or friends, because again, that's where my brain goes. It's like, I'm reading this book, these characters are having a hard time, this and that, they're coming together. I mean, we have real world experience. That's what I compare it to. And if it's believable, it becomes so much more compelling. And
Mhm.
it absolutely checks the box. Grimfell, my man, fire answer. You really conveyed a lot of elements and vulnerability into those characters. Well said, man. Yes, well said. And to reiterate, yes, it did feel like it could be real. I love that. Yes, absolutely. Okay, your fiance got you into it. Wonderful. Let's see, Grimfell. Have
I,
you
I,
read?
I, I I know a couple of people that have told me that, like, yeah, they read the books after their partner read them. So
That's me and
that's
my wife.
cool.
Yes, that has to be. How cool is that? But speak on that experience where somebody is excited about what you're writing, like to the point where multiple people are excited, and you're like, hold on, there might be a thing that I might be good at what I'm doing.
For me, it's surreal. Like I can't believe it, and I get so I'm so I'm full of joy because of all of this. And every time a person says that they like my book, I can't believe it. Like I can't believe it, but it's like it's surreal and I love it. Like I actually have a friend um, that she read the book and then the husband took it and read it. And for the second book, she bought it, and the moment it got to their house, he got it, like he robbed it. He said, "I'm gonna read it first, then you read it." So
Nice.
that was funny.
So totally swiped it. Like, hey, I know this was your idea, but I'm gonna have to take that. But that's how it happened with me and my wife. Molly said, "Hey, this is another author, and I feel like you'd like her work." And my wife was talking about it, and then me, I'm like, hold on, there's got to be something to this. So I feel like that's a really cool aspect. Like, that has to uh, feel so incredible that not only people love the work, but just kind of how a wife and a husband can kind of share that, and it seems to be male or female, a united consensus. So that's a
Yeah.
special place in literature. Not many, uh, I guess, I don't really know. I'm trying to, men and women usually have very different reading topics. So to find a book that both can enjoy, I think is very special. Um, I want to bring awareness about the Promissa Trilogy to more people because it deserves it. Absolutely. Molly says a dystopian world is the best setting for people revealing their true. Ooh, I like
It
that
is.
point.
It is. It is, Molly. That's exactly why I write dystopia.
Oh, I love that. Let's see here. I love a good cliffhanger. They work on me. You're not the only one, my friend. Yes, not definitely not. Let's see here. Awesome. Usually I miss like 15 things, and I'm making sure that I get to everything today because I needed to do that.
I saw a question, and I am reading Dark Bloom.
Okay. And where's
I'm in the third chapter, Molly. Yeah, and it's very good.
yes, it is. It's another author, Molly, characters, good characters in her work, and you as well. Let's see. I haven't checked it out. I'm adding as you're recommending. Okay, sometimes I get lost in the context. Anywho, so are you someone that reads? Period. Are you a reader? Some writers aren't. And if you are a reader, do you read while you're writing?
I am a reader, and I think the year that I read most books was like 2 years ago. I read like 60 books in 1 year. I actually, uh, when I'm writing, I don't read much, but this year I decided to change that. So I'm taking some time to read other than writing, and I already read one book, two books, in this month.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so I do read while I'm writing. I'm trying to, because it helps. It helps with when you're tired or exhausted, and you want to, and I usually take a book that is not a dystopia. I like reading romance. I like reading other, like post-apocalyptic. I also like fantasy. So it
Okay.
depends on my mood.
That's I like that. And it you have like a very, in my opinion, I feel like you have a very, as fresh as it could possibly be, like the aspect in which I'm trying to say here. This is kind of a complex thought I'm having. I'm about to my head's about to start smoking here. Where you can read and write at the same time. So I remember now, based on you writing in English, reading in English, say what you're reading in English, is the rule that I hear a lot true for you? And that rule is, if you want to write, read, read, read. Does that help you?
I It helps, but I try to write more than read. Actually, like I put more hours in my writing, but
Okay, no.
I am a fast reader, so maybe that's why I can, like, I read very very fast. I developed it like 3 years ago, so I can finish a book very, like, in a day or two.
Oh wow,
So
I
it
wish I
depends on um how the day goes, what I'm doing. If I need
sure.
a break from writing, I will read for a longer period. But yeah,
So when an author says read, 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 that's going to help you be a better writer. You would agree with that?
yeah, it does. It does. I think so. And I
That's
think
awesome.
every author would say that many of their ideas come from the stories that they are reading, like uh, elements from your writing always will come from other authors because it's natural. Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. We're not going to write on things we don't know about. I mean, at least I won't. Uh, it only makes sense that our influences and experience and the knowledge gained from those experiences will come into one part of the work. It just makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, my wife, she's reading, and it's funny, dude. I like in a million years, I never would have said that. Yeah, I think my wife will read Fourth Wing. When she said that she loved it, I was like, that's great because she's not a fantasy reader. She gravitates more towards thrillers, dystopian, psychopath, psychological thrillers, stuff like that. So it was very cool to see that she was into something a little different. Um, okay, so what are you working on right now, and kind of what's coming up for you?
Yeah, I'm working on the third book of the Promissa Trilogy. The name is Breaking the Regime. Um, it's
So, by the way, say all the titles. We haven't said the titles. I'm so familiar with your work. I totally just forgot to make that like that's a huge part, right? So, book one is
Rebel Unbound,
two
Rule of the Elite,
and number three.
Breaking the Regime.
It's all look.
And
We got them out there.
yeah, I'm gonna write a second trilogy in this world. So that's my
Okay.
future project, and it's already on the works from book two. So in book two, I start like developing the story for the second trilogy. You don't know it yet, but yeah, it is there. It's in
Oh,
my mind.
that's what's up.
So I'm gonna keep going with this world. Uh, so you're
That
gonna
no,
read more
that's
about some of the characters.
I'm very excited about that. That's very and not only that, let's just say which isn't true. An author that I'm not even invested in their work. It's always inspiring to know and to see an author that's excited about what they're doing and wants to keep doing it. So, and knowing and being familiar and loving the work is even cooler to see. So, I'm very very excited for you and excited to read anything that you put out as well. John, your wife doesn't read romantasy. You Chad. No, and she's officially a romantasy reader now, so I can't be a Chad. Although I have a very round chin. I can't even pull the chin off, man. That's why I have a beard, so you can't see my round chin. Uh, awesome. So book three coming out, and what do you have a TBA like a to be announced release date? Do you have a feel of when that, or should we not put a date on it?
I'm not gonna put a date on it. I want to publish it by summer.
Okay,
But it
that's
depends
soon.
mostly. It depends mostly on the editing process, which can take like maybe 2 months after I finish. So it depends on when I finish. I want to finish by March. Like
Wow, that's very
I want to
awesome.
finish this story, and then it would go into editing, and that's what takes a little bit longer. But
So what's your there's multiple different steps that you could do that some people do, some people don't. So what is your system from finishing your novel, right, and having your first draft to publication? What is your personal like goes from finishing to editor to this to that? Do you have yeah, just kind of what is that for you? What is that system from the end to publication?
yeah, well, while I'm doing my first draft, I always do editing on the way. Then after I finish, I have to self edit it again, knowing what my editor wants from me because I work for her, so I know what she wants.
Okay.
And during like in 2 or 3 weeks, I'm gonna have the cover of the third book. I always do the cover first. Um,
Okay, you always do the
so
cover first.
yeah,
I love that.
I like having the cover done before I get the book finished. I
Okay.
don't know why. It's one of my things. Um, then after I finish, it goes into developmental and content editing, and then it goes into copy line editing, and then proofreading. And after that, then I just publish it. I start usually when I send the book for proofreading, I already have a date set for the publication because I know that it's almost done. So
Wow.
maybe a month after I send it to proofread, I usually have the date.
Do you find a big difference? Well, first, I think that that's wonderful because you use multiple editors, which I feel can only be advantageous. So that's cool to know because not everybody uses multiple editors, and I think that's so cool that you do. And where was I going with that? And I'm having major brain fart moments tonight. Sorry, guys. So publication is after you've edited a few times, and you do the cover before you publish or before you write the book. What
Before
is it?
I, while I'm writing the first draft.
That's incredible. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, see if I've missed anything. So working on book 3, this and that. I'm just trying to. Awesome. I love that, and I think that for me, I didn't expect to. I knew that I maybe would find it okay, but I didn't expect myself to love what a dystopian was. I wanted to make sure to cover that as well. It's like I really didn't. I kind of knew what dystopian meant, and from grimdark fantasy, had an idea of what based on those books, what dystopian meant. But when you put it in a believable situation, the world as it is right now, or modern, as it like your novels are, it makes it so much more believable. So I just wanted to kind of speak on my personal experience and saying that I love dystopian. Like I never expected myself to fall so deep into that feel because it's always like a week away. I don't know. It could always be a week away that we actually live that way. Like things could hit the fan quickly
Yeah.
and that be an inevitability, which is scary, but also makes books so much more believable in that genre.
Yeah. And I think that's why I choose to like write dystopia because like in my mind like it can happen, and I just want people like to be conscious of the situations that could happen, and hopefully uh like we can know how to act based on everything that's written already.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Like if it happens, I hope we all know how, chances are that I'm gonna like if I was to really sit and think if this happens, there's going to be so many idiots that ruin everything for everybody else. Oh gosh, I could go down a rabbit hole with that, but I haven't asked. Well, maybe I've asked it the last couple interviews, but I usually don't ask it anymore. But I wanted to ask you, um, who's someone? It could be an author, it could be a poet, it could be an editor, an illustrator, even people we've talked about in this interview. Who would you recommend that I interview in the future? Who I would gain some knowledge from that maybe you really look up to and enjoy?
I would love to see Michael Manning in an interview. I
Okay,
don't know him, I follow him, but I love his books. I haven't read him in a while. I fell in love with his Mageborn series, and it's like he's amazing. He
you
truly
just
is
set the
amazing.
world record, by the way, for the quickest. That's a hard question. Like people spend minutes on that question, and you were right there. Heck
And
yeah.
I also like my cover artist,
Okay.
Christian Bentelan. He's amazing.
I have all
And
their names down, and I'm excited to reach out
yeah,
because I always take those recommendations very seriously. Um, I guess lastly, I just want to say thank you so much for hanging out. I always invite people on once, uh, knowing that I would love to have you on multiple times. So I can't wait to have you back on. And I wanted to just say I really appreciate you taking some time to talk about your work and kind of the making of and your inspiration on my channel. It's been very fun, and the questions have been wonderful. And I just want to thank you again.
yeah. Thank you for having me, and thanks to all the people that came to see the interview. Like I know some of these people. There was a Puerto Rican author in there.
Well, I'll
Yeah,
have to find out who that is because I want to hit him
Elizabeth.
up.
Elizabeth Nunn
Oh,
is,
Elizabeth. Okay.
yeah.
I remember her comment.
Uh,
I'll have to
yeah, and
see
a
what
couple
her work.
of people that I know and others that I didn't know that have read my books. So that's amazing. And thank you for the support.
100%. I can't wait to be even more familiar with your work and have you back on soon.
Perfect.
Right now, my next, like, I always got to do the YouTube thing, right? Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Won't just help my channel, but those who are on it. Um, I have quite a few interviews scheduled, but they don't start for a little while. So I basically took December and some of January to kind of recoup. So be on the lookout for those. And I do have the links in the description. But would you just kind of let everyone know where they can find you and where to purchase your work?
Yeah, my work is on Amazon. I do send signed copies. You can, message me in Instagram. I usually is the best way to get me, or by email. Like if you ask through Instagram, I can give you the email and we can talk or chat. I don't have a website yet. I've been writing like crazy because I want the books to be out.
Sure,
And I am in TikTok, but well, that's not gonna
sure. Up
continue.
in question.
Yeah. So Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is my preferred social media spot. So
Amazing. Again, guys, I have all of those down below. And again, thank you so much for being here and taking some time to hang out with us. Everyone that was here live, thank you so much. It was a nice little bit of a comeback and refresher because I enjoy doing this and I enjoy talking to people and learning, and I truly did tonight. So we will
thank
see
you.
you the next time, y'all. Have a wonderful, wonderful night.
Good night.